I must say that I am not superstitious about anything except for hockey. And that's just because I don't really know anything about hockey. So like whether a win by the Habs is from Subban's agility or Price's steadfastness or the color of my underwear, it's all the same kind of thing. I wore a new Habs t-shirt to my bar one time during the playoffs, and we lost 6-0 to Philly, and I destroyed the t-shirt. And I know it's like means nothing, but anyway. So guys, Facebook has figured out that I'm fat. I don't know if it's because just because I'm a woman, or because I have 3 kids, or because I'm over 35, or because I share A&W ads with the caption, yum. But I get a lot of weight loss ads. And I also get a lot of plus size clothing ads of late. And what gets me about those ads is that they can't just be the clothes making the statement on a beautiful woman. I see a beautiful woman, I'm like, oh, that's great. What company is that? And then I see size sexy. These bras are size sexy. And anyone who's above a C cup knows that, your size, once you go above a C cup, you're actually in the back of the lingerie store in a drawer and not really exhibited in public. So there's size sexy is one thing that bugs me. I got fill out our florals. Again, I got, love your curves and feel beautiful. And just in case there was any doubt, you're wait a second, shouldn't it be look beautiful or be beautiful? They italicize feel to make sure you know that that's in your imagination. Can you imagine if we marketed single-digit clothing sizes the way that we market plus sizes? It would be size negligible. Shrink into these jeans. Disappear into this flowy caftan. Celebrate your angles. It just wouldn't really, it just doesn't work so much. I just got back from New York. And I've noticed they have a lot of signs there in the subway announcing things you ought not to be doing in the subway and what you ought to be doing. You shouldn't clip your nails in the subway and things like that. But I saw a sign that was really brand new to me, and it was in the Central Park Zoo. And it was a no selfie stick sign. And I've seen no selfie stick signs, but this one was different. It said, selfie sticks are great, just not at the zoo. Since when do we have to validate the life choices of narcissists by being what you do is totally okay, just not in front of the animals? Is this a direction we're going? We have to announce things masturbation is pretty great too, but also not in front of animals or non-consenting adults, are we going to have signs up there soon? But, and selfie sticks are everywhere down there, and I guess there are more here too. But we could really use some etiquette signs on our metro, people, especially now that it's getting colder. People are getting mean. It's rough. My current pet peeve on the metro is the people who walk into the car just by one step, and the car is not even full, but they just stop at the door because they think they're the last person, and you're just I need to get on the train. One of the worst moments I had on the metro was when I was 8 months pregnant with a 9-pound fetus. And I was very evidently pregnant, and I was waiting for the train. And this woman sidles up to me in these stiletto heels, and she's 10 years younger than me. And she stands right in front of the door as I'm standing politely waiting for them to open to let people out. And she just charges through the people coming on and sits in the only available seat, making eye contact with me the entire time. And so I'm side profile, charming. And then I remember that I live in Quebec, and I went, charmante. Because nothing tells someone off like translating it to them and repeating yourself in their language. I sure showed her. I don't know if you noticed this on the news, but a few weeks ago there was an emergency evacuation on the Orange Line at rush hour, and I was there with my 2-year-old. And I actually left the train before they announced that it was, that the service was no longer running. I just had it. I was going to try to get a bus, but then they said the service was closed. This is all, of course, happening in French because it is the STM. And so the train emptied out, and we're walking along the platform, and then they do a notice in French, and they say, ladies and gentlemen, this is an emergency. Please exit via the nearest exit. We need to evacuate the station. And everyone was just like, Montreal, they're like, oh, whatever, I'm late for work, I don't really care, The line is moving really slowly. And then, like, a pre-recorded English announcement came on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an emergency. You need to leave. And, like, the panic was palpable in everyone's eyes, because they're just like, the STM is using English. Truly, it is the end of days. I've never seen a group of Montrealers lose their cool. And I honestly thought we might die that day when that happened. My French is pretty good. It's not good enough to feel confident enough to use it for you for the evacuation message. So the joke kind of got not as good because I was refusing to use French. But I sent my kids to French school. They have the right to go in English, but I send them in French because we live in Quebec, and this is what I want them to be bilingual. And so I've learned a lot of things in my vocabulary from having kids going to French daycare and French school. Like I learned biberon and bavette and all these baby words, poussette. And now that my daughters are in school, I've learned a whole other series of things. So they got a notice home last year. There was a sheet of yellow paper, and it had scarlatine on the top. And I was like, scarlatine? Is that like chocolatine? What is this? So I look it up in my phone, and it is scarlet fever. My children had been exposed to scarlet fever in 2010. I guess it wasn't last year. Maybe it was well, I don't even know what year it is anymore. It certainly isn't the 19th century, is what I'm trying to say, because I have a master's in romantics, and people died of scarlet fever in those books, like, all the time. And so the reason I can be forgiven by thinking it was, like, an innocent thing was because the thing that people don't tell you about being a parent, well, first of all, they don't tell you you're going to get, like, exposed to every disease known to humankind multiple times a year. And like diseases you never heard of, like roseola and Fifth's disease. And people will tell you that roseola only happens to children, and then you have an entire rash covering your body, and your boss goes, no, don't come into work like this. And then you realize, so you don't realize you're gonna get all these diseases, or they're gonna be exposed to them. But no one tells you that having a child is like a 20-year sentence to Comic Sans font. Like on everything, from like the day they start daycare. My boyfriend's daughter's 12. She gets everything home in Comic Sans font. Like, it just never ends, guys. And I have 3 children. I'm just going to be in Comic Sans font for the foreseeable future. And when you're giving me medical information about a disease, like, I don't want to hear it in the voice of a child, or like an intellectually compromised adult, which is what Comic Sans sounds like to me. And so I was thinking, like, if you're going to tell me something about scarlet fever, I want that in Garamond, or a book Antiqua. Like, the font should match the disease, Something like the common cold would be Arial, right? Or Times New Roman, like, oh yeah, whatever, that's just going to happen, The more threatening ones would be the scarier ones. And I was telling my friend about this, about like the fonts being disease, and she's like, what is wingdings? What disease is wingdings? And I was like, I don't know. And then last year, on the eve of my identical twins' birthday, I was combing out their long and luscious red hair, and I found lice running around their scalps. And I said, wingdings! Because that is the perfect articulation of the unintelligible line of expletives that emitted my mouth when I found blood-sucking parasites on 3 of my children. I'm Gina Grander, guys. That's my time. Thank you so much.